Hey guys, welcome back to Survival Vietnamese, where we talk about Vietnamese language, Vietnamese everything. And today we have a really special guest, my really good friend, Andy. Thanks for joining us, Andy.
Thanks for having me.
So we're here in Saigon, aka Ho Chi Minh City, and you've been here for a couple months now?
It'll be 3.5 months.
3.5 months.
Before I leave, yeah.
Has this been your longest trip
Yes.
so far?
Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Andy, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So I'm currently a storyboard artist in live action films and animation, and also do like transitioning towards like writing and directing. So I worked on like shows at like first shows on Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
Then went to Netflix. Worked there for a few years on like Trash Truck and Arlo, on a Code 8, which is like a live action movie. Then afterwards went to go work on Transformers. And Star Wars Visions, so now
Wow.
I work on my own stuff right now.
Wow, some super heavy hitters there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which one is like the most? What do you when you tell people about that list? Which one gets people most excited?
Oh man, I mean, for everyone knows Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
That's like everyone's like childhood.
Yep.
So usually everyone that meets, I usually do a little sketch for them. So that's always fun. But if it's like Star Wars has been a big one too, because everyone knows Star Wars. It's usually like the big IP or stuff that people know.
Yeah.
But they've all been so rewarding. Like each project has a different experience or kind of gem that I can walk away with. So I can't quite.
Yeah.
Say, oh, pick your favorite one. I'm like, it's kind of hard to say. 'Cause
Yeah.
each one has their own special experience.
Super cool. And I've known you for more than a year now. We connected through our mutual friend,
Melissa.
What's up, Melissa? When we first met, you told me about this amazing project that you're working on now, and it's been quite a while, right?
Yeah.
This massive project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently writing and developing my own animated feature film called THAO. It's just a love letter for everything I grew up watching, like reading anime, comics, superhero stuff, DC, Marvel. But when I was at Netflix, I noticed that there wasn't much Asian stories being told, specifically Vietnamese stories. You know, there's like Korean, Japanese, Chinese, but I was like, oh, no one's telling Vietnamese stories. So I kind of decided I want to go learn screenwriting. So, because the only way to see these stories is we have to write ourselves, right? And then put in that work to kind of will it to existence for other people to see it. And so that started that own journey of that. And really the initial conceit was just a joke in terms of like this guy that like every time he claps his hand gets a random power.
Yeah.
And turns into a fish, and then he can't clap his powers anymore.
Yeah.
Because he has short fins. And he's just like this the whole time.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's just based on that one joke. Then it turned to this whole journey of telling the story of my own healing as a human being as well.
Really? So that was just a joke, like that was with your friends, or
No, just me. I just thought it was a funny idea.
Okay, just because you're a storyboard artist, so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had this image of this like really funny thing
Yeah.
with like a guy clapping, but he became a fish, so now he
can't clap, yeah.
clap, and then that just led you on this epic like
Yeah.
storytelling mode where
Yeah.
now you are working on this Vietnamese animated feature.
Yeah.
Wow, that's epic.
So we did the pilot, which is like a 35-minute one, and that was my first time really just to learn more about like, can I do this on my own, right? In terms of like writing something and boarding it out. You know, obviously I had an amazing team that helped brought it to life, but in terms of like the initial development of that, you know,
Yeah.
of like just incubating that story and like obviously having friends that like, you know, bounce ideas and get notes from people, but just can I write something and then board it myself?
Yeah. So when we first met, we met at my friend's restaurant here in Saigon, and when you told me the inspiration for THAO, you know, once you were getting the story rolling, was meeting your family.
Yes.
In reality. And I felt really connected to that story. It was very emotional because I went through something similar where I went back with my dad to my grandma's hometown.
Yes.
And I was so moved by that story that you told, where you first met your family at your ancestral home, right? Could you tell us a little about tell us about that experience?
I remember that day. I think me and you were both like we were tearing up sharing our stories.
Yeah.
I remember us like being really emotional about it because I think I had just came back from Hanoi to see you to share that story. Life-changing trip. You know, the whole trip has been life-changing. So I have found out that like we had like this kind of long-lost family in Hanoi, and got to visit them, and then turns out like our whole ancestry is documented back before year 1000.
Wow.
Like we have, it's like the like the genealogy book.
I think so.
Right. But it was just cool to see like you have that book, and then the original documentation that starts that detailed one. It's like year 1000. There's like 5 brothers.
Yeah.
So they each had their own genealogy book. So there was like jihad, like so branch 1, branch 2, branch 3, branch 4, branch 5. So it turns out that I'm from branch 2.
Yeah.
And from that year 1000, I think I'm 17th generation.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
17th generation.
And we also have our own ancestral burial ground as well.
Yeah.
So and then we have their ancestral, right, the ancestral home shrine.
Sure.
I don't know. There's a movie called Nya Yating, so I'm assuming it means ancestral home as well. I got to see the book first, and it's they actually had the original pages from back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's like all old and like basically decomposing.
Yeah.
So it's set aside somewhere, but they basically Xerox everything. And the original pages were actually in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So that had to be translated to Vietnamese, and even then it's old Vietnamese. Eventually that got like passed down to generation.
Wow.
And so it was amazing seeing all these names in the books. It's just like that date back that far, you know.
Yeah.
And then we found out that like the Temple of Literature, the Văn Miếu. So our ancestor, that branch 2 brother that I'm from, he's in the first graduating class of the Văn Miếu.
That's incredible.
So apparently we can actually go to them and be, hey, I'm from his descendant.
Yeah.
Can you show me where it is? And they'll bring you out there to show you where it is in the turtle.
That's amazing. I mean, it still blows me away every time you say that, and because I'm a big history geek, and I've been to Văn Miếu a few times, and I'm just so delighted by that story, because I always tell people that's like the 1 or 2 things that I introduce you as. It's like, oh, this is Andy. He has traced his lineage back to the year 1000. He has his ancestors listed on the rock, right?
On the Turtle Rock.
Turtle Rock in Văn Miếu. And first graduating class. But amazing.
It's funny because like in the Văn Miếu area, they have I think that they list out the top like graduating class in terms of like the top of their grade. Yeah. He didn't make it to top 20, right. But he graduated like the first class. I was like,
the Asian parent.
I know. I was like,
come on.
Like, couldn't get top 20? It would have been so cool to see your name right there. Still, to be just first graduating class is like awesome.
Yeah. And just something about the year 1000 just sounds like, almost like prehistoric even, you know? Yeah, that's incredible. So that has already been a very emotional experience for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, so after seeing that that book, my uncle and my cousin took us to the ancestral home. It's this kind of big kind of altar shrine, and at the entrance of the shrine, or the altar shrine, it says, "The roots of Ham begin here." Yeah. And me and my sister, I just broke down and started crying. Wow. Because it's like, oh, this is the pinpoint of like our family, you know, or just this, at least for this passage of time to us, that there's a marking that we can go back to. And what's ironic is that there's also a big family. There's a big tree in the garden. That's like its own family tree, as like a symbol of like our family tree. Yeah. And so when afterwards, my uncle's like, "Oh, please go ahead and make a prayer at the altar," and he said, "Know that whatever prayer wishes you make, know that you have all those names that you saw in the book, all those ancestors are watching over you, and they're guiding you, protecting you. You know, whatever wishes that you want to make, they might help bring it to life. Yeah, because you have the backing of all their support." And that just like made me and my sister cry more. It's kind of like the whole like Mulan thing, you know, and you see all the names that pop up.
First thing that came to mind.
And then I never have felt such a sense of peace before, in terms of whatever good things or bad things in my life had led me to that moment. You know? Afterwards, there was like a engraving on the door at the end, as we were leaving, and I think it's Nước nhớ. I think that's the phrase. And the translation is, when you drink water, remember the source. Which is like I think a pretty famous like idiom or proverb. So that was like kind of hit me too, in terms of like, oh wow, like this whole discovery of our roots, you know, and this other part of my identity that I had no idea about, you know. Right. So that's my dad's side, and then my mom's side is like the total opposite of that, like very humble beginnings, down in Mỹ. And for her ancestry, it just goes up to her grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just so even talking to my mom's side, they're like, "Oh, you guys are probably pretty well off back in the day."
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you can actually track everything down up to that point, so that's actually not very common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it is. A lot of people that I talk to, a lot of locals, kind of similar situation where I guess humble beginnings. They didn't have like a family scholar or anything to keep all the records, and it just makes me so curious because like my family is also the same. I trace it back to I think my great grandparents. So when we went to Namden to see my grandma's ancestral home, they took us to the family cemetery, and it was really trippy because everyone had the same last name. It was the Tran clan, like ancestral land, you know, like all the cemetery was just Tran. And actually Namden is where the famous Tran clan people come from as well. Like the general Jung Hung Dao is also there. There's a big shrine to him there. And yeah, I didn't expect feeling anything until I was there. And I think maybe you experience the same because growing up in the States, we don't think about that. We had too many things to think about, you know, just keeping our grades up and like fitting in at school and like all these different things. But like connecting to ancestral land and our ancestors, and then, you know, just experiencing this kind of like, wow, I'm a piece of this larger thing that I never even knew about. Was profound.
I mean, I'll never forget this statement that my friend said. She's Korean, and she said when she went back to Korea, when she stepped foot on that soil, she started crying. So I had that in my head. So when I stepped foot on like Vietnamese soil, I was like waiting to cry for that like spark, and I didn't feel it. So I stayed in Saigon first, and the interesting part is like when I was there, I saw my mom everywhere. Not in terms of like seeing her, but the behavior and characteristics of Nguyen Ham. Like, it's very like the way she sits and moves and talks. I'm like, oh, this is a Southern thing. And then I didn't see my dad anywhere, but I still didn't quite feel like connected. And then when I went to the North, I was like, oh my God, this is like, I see my dad everywhere. My dad's in the back. Like it's different. The way they carry themselves and walk is so different than like the Southern. So I didn't see my mom anywhere. So that was just such like a eye-opening thing. So I felt, if anything, I felt more connected to my parents. And seeing like, oh wow, like they're so shaped by their environment, you know, in terms of where they grew up. But it wasn't until like going into the homes of like my mom's home in Mỹ Tho and going to the ancestral home, that's when I was like, oh, I feel connected now. You know, to see like I think just having that like physical space that you step into, like, oh, this is the roots of like where my family came from and where I'm from.
Knowing you now for however long, you know, like not that long, but like, you know, we do hang out a lot, we talk a lot, and like just what you explained right there, I can feel that's so Andy, because you're an artist, you know, you're a storyboard artist, you pay attention to the details and those nuances, and here you're talking about like the transmission of culture, but not just like, you know, what we think about as culture, like beliefs and customs, but also like mannerisms. You're seeing the mannerism of Southern people being passed on and being carried from many generations before to like your mom, just like the way she sits and moves, and then your dad too.
The bowl, you know, like, I'm not gonna do it because I'm wearing shorts right now, but like
that's something that like always motivates me to find out more and discover more about Vietnamese culture, because I also care about those details and those nuances, because I think like somebody who comes to Vietnam and just visits superficially, they're like, oh, it's all kind of the same. You know, it's like all the towns kind of look the same, they have the same buildings, you know, cuisine is kind of similar, but it's all there. Like all those
so
nuances,
different. There's so many layers to it.
And then it's like fascinating because, you know, you need like multiple lifetimes to really uncover all those nuances. How has that experience so far influenced THAO?
So much.
This project.
Yeah, so the original version of THAO was lacking the world building. It's more just me kind of just finding the story still, and coming back from that Vietnam trip back in December 2023, I would share the story about finding my ancestral roots. My friends would lean in, like some of them would get even emotional. They're not even like Vietnamese, and they get emotional like hearing this story. And I kind of asked, like, oh, why is that? Like people are getting emotional. I feel like I think a lot of people don't know where they come from. So to be able to find that, I think it's very powerful, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's that one quote of like, to know where you're going, so know where you're from, right? And I feel like a lot of people are still trying to find themselves.
Yeah.
So it's been such a gift that's given me such ease.
Mm-hmm.
So a friend of mine gave me a really great note. He said, your original version of THAO is like, it's fun, it's entertaining, but it was lacking a soul. He's like, when you tell me this story about you finding your family roots, I lean in so much. It's like, if you can find a way to combine both of them, you have something really special. And that's what I did. And I found a new story that was like very heavily inspired by my trip in the North and the South.
Yeah.
And it's really made for a really interesting story that I think is very unique.
Yeah.
That I personally haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's inspired by a lot of different things, but I think it's very refreshing take on it. And I've been talking to local filmmakers here as well,
mm-hmm.
in terms of like, the Asian cinema scene is kind of growing, and there's a lot of innovative ways of telling stories. But at the core of it, structurally, it's all the same in terms of like the three act structure. But what's making it different is actually the tapestry and the nuances
mm-hmm.
of it. Of a Thai movie or a Korean movie or a Vietnamese movie, like most of the world hasn't been exposed to this yet.
Yeah.
So it's been very refreshing. Whereas like Hollywood, everyone's seen so many Hollywood films now.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought that was a kind of interesting thing where like there's still this universal specificity despite being from different cultures,
mm-hmm.
right? That allow people to connect on a global scale.
Right. Yeah. That's the beauty of art and storytelling,
mm-hmm.
is that we find those universal themes, but then it's always going to have a different flavor.
Yeah.
And that flavor isn't just something that is like, just on the surface. It's lineage, it's
mm-hmm.
customs, it's storytelling that comes from many, many generations that we're tapping into. And that's kind of the journey that we've been on.
Yeah.
Just growing up in the States and coming back here, it's just like, wow, I have like all of these resources now to pull from. And not only is it like an outward storytelling, it's an outward expression. It's also very internal. Mm-hmm. It's very real. It's very personal. And I feel like for you, this is such a personal project.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've been here for the last 2.5 months. I don't know why I said years. It felt like,
you want it to be years.
Yeah, I want it to be years. But it's just to immerse myself in the culture. And, I was up in the North for a month for that. I got to learn so much about the Northern culture and being here, learning about the Southern culture from friends here and family here. A lot of it is just like these little nuances are seeping their way into the story.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Like there's no way you can find these nuances without experiencing it and living it.
Yeah.
So even for me, it's like just getting lost in the street and just taking photos everywhere, just getting inspiration.
Yeah.
You just can't beat that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have to mention that THAO is right behind you.
Oh,
you gifted me this a long time ago. Anyone who's been following this channel, this has been hanging up here as our backdrop. Super, super excited every time I hear updates about THAO, and man, I'm so excited to see it. And it's going to be a long wait, right? Because you really want to make this right.
We will find a way to will it to existence. I don't know how it's going to work out, but we'll find a way.
Yeah. So anyone out there that's like just listening right now, like pay attention to Andy and this project, THAO, that's on its way. Yeah. Willing it to existence.
Yeah. So it's definitely not going to be, I was thinking about whether to do it in a studio system or not, or to pitch it, but I think it'll be too hard. I think there's a lot of bureaucracy when you pitch movies. And I mean, if there is a studio, it's like, yeah, we'll do it with you, and then like we'll give you, be very collaborative with you, then that's great. But I think there's certain elements that I don't want to water down.
Yeah.
In terms of for our culture.
Yeah, just got to do it properly, and you're here doing all the research like in person and connecting with local artists and other storytellers.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think that's for us who are coming from overseas and born in the States and bicultural, is super important to connect to the locals here, to have that conversation. I would never do some kind of project about Vietnamese culture without working together with the community, not just back in the States, but also in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just like running through like story ideas or cultural things, and like you learn so much about it, you know. Like my cousin was like gave me this whole thing, and then I was like, oh wow, I didn't think about that. Like, you know, we weren't taught that in America.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, like you should take a look at these things, take a look at these, like these historical like moments that have happened.
I think, I don't know, for some reason as a kid growing up, I was more into like self-awareness and culture and those things than a lot of people around me. And I was like really offended as a kid not seeing anything Asian on screen and in media. Like, I think because I had a lot of pride, even as like a really young kid, with Vietnamese culture and like storytelling. I grew up just listening to a lot of stories, and I think, you know, also like this is not Vietnamese, but like watching Hong Kong series when I was a kid, and then kind of, you know, kind of mixing that together into just Asian identity, which a lot of us do, right? In the US, we do kind of clump together into one Asian identity. And then I'm like, man, there's so many cool stories, and like I'm so emotional about Asian media, and I'm just like, man, people are missing out, man. It's just not on screen. And then so when Mulan came out, huge deal, right? And then Avatar, which is the Asian aesthetics and storytelling, was massive. And then, you know, finally now it's there, but it's there. You know, you probably know it better than me, like, but I can already see the bureaucracy and the difficulty in like telling like an Asian perspective. Too many people involved here.
I mean, I'll never forget this, where like in the story, like the parents are the bad guys, but they're not the bad guys. They're just flawed people. Yeah. And I'll never forget, an exec was like, oh, parents don't want to see themselves as bad people. I'm like, they're not, so they can't be the antagonists. I was like, no, I'm not saying they're bad guys. I'm saying that they're flawed people, and these are create obstacles for us as children or as kids to go through these hurdles. Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is not gonna work. Like, it'll be very challenging to make this type of movie here. Yeah. Okay. I mean, obviously things have changed. This is like,
this is not an Asian person that comments.
This is a white person.
Okay.
And even then, like, I felt like they wanted to conform the story a certain way. And I remember talking to my director on Code 8, where he was like, because I grew up watching like Asian content and like American content. You know, there's different types of storytelling, you know. Yeah. In both just culturally, and I love having a blend of both, you know. Yeah. And they really wanted to, like, you were giving notes in terms of pinpointing it a certain direction. Yeah. That was very more like Western, like Hollywood. Yeah. And then I brought it to my director, and he was like, well, if you want to make the film fit that, then you have to play by their sandbox. But if you want to tell a story, you have to do it on your own. Right. And I was like, oh, this is such an Asian American identity of being like in this dash of like, I can't make this movie that bridges both, but it has to pick one to fit a certain studio. Right. To make, you know. Yeah, yeah. You have to play by the rules of the system to get it out there. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to circle back too to ask about, you know, when you include Vietnamese locals here into the ideas, and then you're checking in with them. And I'm saying that that's super important to have kind of like these people, because in a way they are the authority. We're talking about Vietnamese culture. It's like, oh, I got to ask Vietnamese locals, like, because I grew up in the States where it's, you know, it's different. You know, we got a lot of our cultural education through our family, and not from Vietnam or like, you know, a Vietnamese environment. But nowadays, I feel like no matter how deeply we try to tell a purely Vietnamese story, it might not happen, just because by default, we are bicultural. We are third culture, and our experience isn't American or Vietnamese. It is kind of this hybrid or something else. And that's really beautiful in itself. So I think that nowadays I start to embrace that more. And, you know, when I do try to present something that's like purely Vietnamese, then I do defer to Vietnamese people. But if I'm just talking about my perspective, or like, you know, my opinion or my experiences growing up, I honor the bicultural experience, you know, because we are completely different. And so I wonder if, like, when you
talk to Vietnamese people and then they give you ideas, do you ever feel like, oh, you know what, that's important, I'll consider that, but the way I'm telling it is still a very Vietnamese, overseas Vietnamese American perspective still?
I mean, I think definitely in the textures and the backdrop, I want to be very respectful of that.
Yeah.
Because those are just like things you just cannot put a like that like what's that? What was the word?
Bicultural?
Bicultural like
Yeah.
perspective. Like that is the house. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna like mess with that. You know.
Yeah.
But in terms, I think, of the journey my character's going through, or in the stories, and that's more of a bicultural experience.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of their observations of that.
Right.
But it's really a coming back story in terms of learning more about the culture and discovering a lot about the culture.
Yeah.
So it has to be reliant on the people and locals here.
Right.
But even then, it's like everyone's experience is so different.
Yeah.
Like from the north and the south and the central. So even when you ask different people, it's going to be very like different experiences.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like just kind of picking what serves the story, but in the most authentic and respectful way.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is just like so much my journey too. And I can totally relate, just like coming from the Vietnamese American perspective, and, you know, which is still valid, right? That's still what we experience as something that hundreds of thousands of us experienced growing up. And then, you know, just trying to figure out like, okay, so what is Vietnamese? And then for a time feeling like, you know, what I experienced like isn't valid. That's not really Vietnamese. This is like some kind of weird Frankenstein of like American and Vietnamese values. And then kind of having to deal with the challenge of like how to understand it, you know, like what is Vietnamese, and dealing with criticism, you know, just like, oh, you know, like, no, it's supposed to be like this. No, it's like this. But then now I think we've stepped into this other level of like, well, you know, we can't just blanket term this is Vietnamese. Because like you have there's so much nuance. So now you're dealing with this like, I actually know more. There's more nuance to it. There's northern, there's central, there's southern, you know. But do you feel like those nuances are also really hard to communicate to when you make art, you know, when you tell this story? Like how do you present that? Because it's almost like this thing that I had to kind of confront recently with pho, and then it hit me. I was like, oh wait, pho is like really popular around the world, but like there's so much more Vietnamese cuisine, and I'm like, oh, but it's because pho is so easy to eat. Everyone can relate to it and understand it. And then now it's like we're out here in Vietnam trying to discover more about Vietnamese culture. There's so much. And then because we're from the West and we're kind of like telling stories to a bigger audience, like, are we having to dilute it? You know, it's a very complex question, but
I'm trying to dilute it in the story. I don't think I am.
That's awesome.
Like there was like that moment. I think I was eating like a bún riêu outside, and this lady was like, she's closing, and then she's like, oh, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll leave. She's like, no, I'll make a table for you. Takes 2 red stools, stacks it up, and makes a table out of that. And I'm like, that's so Vietnam. Like, that has to be like in the movie now.
Right.
It's like those are the nuances and details that you can't come up with that. Yeah. You know, like unless people here like see an experience out before, I was like, that's pretty awesome. Like, they just stack one stool here, flip this one upside down. Here's a table for you. You can sit on this one. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah. I appreciate stuff like that too.
So, or like even like when I was up in Hanoi, like my auntie like when they show like in terms of like we're gonna go on tour, going house to house, like, greeting everyone. People love their sunflower seeds. Yeah. You know, like every table is like, you know,
it's a thing.
And it's like they have their tea sets ready. I'm like, oh, that's very like. These are the little nuances that are in the backdrop, but we don't need to like put a spotlight on it because we're just existing within this Vietnamese world, right?
Right.
Whereas like certain movies are like, let's throw a ping pong scene out of nowhere,
right?
Because that's what Chinese people love. Like I'm not gonna mention what movie, but there's this one movie that just put a lot of like these like Chinese tropes in it, just to fit the Chinese narrative. But I'm like, that's too pandering to the audience.
That's so interesting.
Right.
It's like you're presenting a culture that is like quote unquote, and I hate this word, exotic.
Yeah, yeah.
But like presenting it with tropes that people recognize,
Yeah.
so they can be like, oh yeah. You don't want to give them something new because it's like too much brain energy for them to be like, what? You know, you want to give them the tropes, the things that work.
They're recognizable. But I think what's recognizable is like the sunflower seeds, the like that stool. You know, it's just little nuances like that.
For the locals,
yes.
For the people that know it, they're like, you know, thumbs up. You get bonus points for that because that's actually real. And then anyone else that's watching that doesn't know about that, now they know.
Yeah. There's a level of exposure to it.
Right. I love that.
So it's like being respectful of the culture, but in a very nuanced and subtle way, where it's just we don't need to like pander.
Yeah.
It should just be it. You know.
Move away from the tropes. Yeah. Move away from pho. It's really good, but there's so much other good Vietnamese food, right? I think we can talk about that for like every category, I think, right? Just as like presenting the full range of the culture. I do want to move on to just talking about language. Another similarity between us is that we grew up in, I don't know the correct word for this, but like multi-regional families, right? Because your parents are both from different parts of the country too, right?
Yeah, dad's from the north, mom's from the south. So then I thought being very like naive is just like I'm just speaking one language.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I was made fun of. When I'm at my dad's side, they're like, "You say words weird," and then with my mom's side, like, "You say words weird." And I'm like, I'm just speaking what I know. But then coming here to Vietnam, I'm like, oh yeah, they were right. Like there's the dialects. They're just
It's
very
just
different.
the dialects. Yeah. You weren't saying they're weird. You were just using different dialects all mixed up.
Yeah, all mixed in together. But you know what's the irony is that when I was taking your Vietnamese class, they were saying like there's certain words that I think your class is teaching Southern dialect.
Yeah, we got all
and
Southern
the
teachers
teacher
right
was
now.
like, you say you have a little bit of Northern dialect. Can you not say that word with Northern dialect and say it with the Southern dialect? And I was like, no, I refuse. And it was because those were the words taught to me by my grandparents that were basically kind of raised me growing up, and my Amnoy Banoy.
Yeah.
And I never had this appreciation for the language until like taking your class and learning more about the culture. It's like that's my connection to. I don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
Because to lose those words is to lose my connection with my grandparents. You know.
Totally understandable.
Or when after come back from the Vietnam trip, I'm so more attentive to how my dad's side of the family speaks.
Yeah.
Versus my mom's side. Like there's a lot of z. I didn't catch it before because I just played it on autopilot.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh, everyone says that vang a lot. My mom says more yeah.
Yeah. That is something I learned recently too, because I grew up not hearing vang.
Yeah.
My dad's Northern, but he came to Saigon when he was just 1 year old, and he's basically a Southern boy. Although his neighborhood was a lot of Northerners, and he's actually a very proud Northerner, but his language is kind of a hybrid. And then I didn't learn until recently that Southern dialect only uses they don't use vang, so that's the traditional classic Southern dialect. But now we hear it really mixed in Vietnam because they're being taught that vang is like very formal. They use it still in the South, but it's not part of traditional Southern.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about that because my dad's like a Vietnamese, so his sisters were born in Hai Phong, but he was born in the South. So it's much like your dad,
right?
But he still was very proud Northerner. You know, even now he's still very proud like Northerner.
Yeah.
But still, his dialect I think is a bit softer in terms of growing up in the Southern.
Yeah. Does he do the Z's?
I have to think back because I haven't heard my dad in a while. So we haven't talked. Not because we're on bad terms, just because I've been traveling. But when we're at the family reunion, all his cousins were saying Z a lot.
Yeah. Because they're from
the north.
They're living there now.
No, these are in America. So we had a family reunion in America.
Yeah.
And I'm like paying attention. So when I was paying attention to my dad's side in America or in Canada, I noticed a lot of Z sounds. I'm like, true. Way back.
Yeah, because it's something I noticed because I'm always super geeky, paying attention to the nuances and stuff. And Northerners, Bắc Nam Tu, that grew up here, like at least my dad's friends, that's where they draw the line.
Oh yeah.
They don't do the Z. There's no Z's. Yeah, they'll do V. So they'll be like Vietnam, the V's, but there's no Z. right? So I think that's kind of like the compromise.
I'll pay
that they
attention
do.
to my dad next time.
I think the Z is where you fully identify
Yeah,
as
yeah.
Northern. Yeah, because I studied linguistics, and this is super fascinating because when we think about dialect, we're like, what's the big deal? You know, it's just a dialect. If we're going to learn a language, just learn one standard dialect.
Yeah.
Just make it easy. I get that from a teaching perspective, but dialects means so much more to people than just this is how you talk. It's emotional, it's community, and these communities are long established and they have history and customs and like all this stuff goes into it, right? So then when you say that you're learning from a teacher that speaks Southern and then you're like, I don't want to speak that word like that. I'm going to talk the way I talk, my family talks. That's very important to me. I totally understand that because it's way more than just words and sounds. Like you're identifying with a community of people. And then if you go down to the details, it can come down to just one sound that's like, you're one of us, you know, or like one sound that you don't make that we do make, you're not one of us, you know? So it's something like, if you're going to be speaking with Z's, automatically it's like, whoa, so this person is like not in the community anymore. It's unfortunately like there's a double-edged sword to it,
Do you
right?
code switch them back and forth?
Me?
Yeah.
I do, but not because of my family. Growing up, I was way closer to my mom's side. And so I speak a pretty full-on Southern dialect. Yeah. That's all like completely Southern dialect growing up in my family. Vietnam, you know, no V sounds even, all like yeah, all the way.
Oh yeah, my dad would say Vietnam.
But growing up here, not growing up here, living in Vietnam is where I started code switching. Because then I got influenced by the way Vietnamese people speak here. And I'm starting to notice like when they talk like more formally, they will kind of switch over to V sounds and like more northern sounds, or I guess what people would call standard dialect. That's something I noticed. That's something I learned recently too, is that there's northern dialect and then there's standard dialect, which is not exactly the same thing. The standard is what they learn in school, and that's what they're taught is the formal way to talk. But that's just based on the northern dialect. So, for example, the R sound, like xong rồi. So the R sound is part of the standard dialect. But if you talk to northerners who speak northern dialect, they turn R into Z, xong rồi. And that's not taught in standard dialect. So actually the southern dialect pronounces the R clearly, and so they're more standard in that sense. So I don't know, it's
like
just
context,
geeky stuff like that. You know, so it's just, that's another of like, you know, the more you know these nuances. Now they're standard, and then there's actually northern, and then with northern dialect you can actually break that down into regions too, because then you have Hải Phòng. Hải Phòng speaks their own version of northern dialect, and they're really proud of it. They have their own slang, they have like all these different ways of talking. And then I think northerners, some northerners I've met have been able to identify where in the north they're from the way they talk. So it's super duper interesting. Same with southerns, definitely the same with central, probably more so central than anywhere else. I learned recently that the central dialect has maybe the most variation. Quảng Trị, Huế, Nghệ An, and to be like linguistic nerdy again, this is where they think that Vietnamese came from. When you go back to the source, the old source of the language, that's where you're going to have the most diversity, because it's just been sitting there longer, just like evolving. So then you have all this diversity there.
So cool.
It's super fascinating. And then you have us who are like just grown up ignorantly, not knowing that we're in a mixed dialect family, and then just saying all kinds of stuff.
But even for me, it's been awesome coming back here. Like, you know, not only are we bicultural, just being American and Vietnamese, but come back here to bicultural of North and South. So it's been such a gift to be able to like go celebrate that in Hanoi and then come here, or have a dinner down in Natal at family, or a meal down there. Just
embrace it. Have you heard the expression nói lơ lơ? When I heard that the first time, I thought it was people commenting on my English and Vietnamese. So when I speak Vietnamese, I speak with an English American accent, that is what it is. But lơ lơ also applies to a northerner that speaks with like a little bit of Southern and vice versa or whatever. You're not speaking the standard of that dialect. It's all mixed up. So you've been lala maybe like on different levels, just like me. You're lala with like English and Vietnamese, and then also Northern and Southern.
And then taking your classes too, so there's like more lala.
So right now you're on a journey of learning more about Vietnamese culture, applying that to THAO and the story in THAO, right? But along with that is also learning Vietnamese language and leveling up your Vietnamese. For yourself personally, what does that mean to you? Like, why do you want to improve Vietnamese?
It's just to connect with people here. Connecting with my family here, connecting more with like locals here. It's really, I think that communication is such a huge thing. So the more we learn about it, the more we can connect with each other and understand each other and have conversations, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, because I've had friends here that have stayed here but don't put in the effort to learn the language. So then they feel not quite fully connected. So I think that language really helps out a lot to help create bridges.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a given, right? Like, I think anyone knows that having the language will connect you deeper with people. But so have you experienced that in real time?
It improved a little bit in Hanoi because I was there for a month, and like most of my relatives can't speak English there. The moment I came back here, it just kind of like declined again. But it was great. There's a lot of words you just kind of like can kind of infer from like conversation what it means, you know, or so it's kind of a lot of words you grew up hearing but you kind of forgot about, like they're in your subconscious. But I think it's gotten a little bit better. But I don't think it's gotten like tremendously better. I think because it's also like it takes a lot of time to learn, you know. Like I had like mentioned with your classes, like I just couldn't commit because it's almost like a full-time job to learning. Just with my schedule is difficult. But throwing yourself into like a family that doesn't speak like English as much was very that was a huge learning curve, you know.
Right.
But it also made me grateful in terms of like my Vietnamese is like of a 4-year-old, and some are just of a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old coming to Vietnam here. So that made me just appreciate that, you know, to get by a little bit. But I'll see like little kids that are like 4 or 5. I'm like, that is amazing. Like what's coming out of your mouth, you know, like it's just so cool. So I am grateful for what little I do have. Because it does help me get by.
You just made me remember that I got gifted a children's book.
Oh, really?
Because my friends here in Saigon were like, "Oh, you're learning Vietnamese. Here's a kid's book. It's really easy." It was not easy at all, dude. I was like, they gave me a translation of The Little Prince. And I was like,
oh, that's a hard, heavy
It was hard, dude. Every page took me like 20 minutes. I couldn't even understand it. I was like, I need to just Google Translate this.
Oh, or like, you'll see me on the streets and I'll be like doing these like signs like this. Just like, you know, like,
is that the Ngato? And yet it works. It still works. So I'm gonna test you. I got a few words that I've been using recently that I've added to my toolkit.
Google Translate?
All right, let's see how you do. Okay, so word number 1, Chan thủ.
Fuck, I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Have you heard this word recently?
Chan, like in lemon. Ho was in like jar.
I don't know how to spell it. Thùy Anh, tranh thủ.
Tranh thủ
là TR phải không? Yeah, tranh thủ. Yeah.
Chưa nghe lần nào.
Oh, really? Okay. So this is a controversial word only because I think that our family don't use these words. This is like a newer word. Tranh thủ is like hurry it up. If they say like, oh, tranh thủ làm hết nha. You know, like that means like, you know, let's kind of speed it along.
Oh, I heard like mau lên, like
yeah. Tranh thủ cũng là mau lên phải không Thùy Anh?
Tranh thủ làm gì đó.
Tranh thủ làm cho nó xong.
Yeah. Tranh thủ quay trước khi trời tối nè.
Yeah, it's like let's focus. You know, like I don't know.
I feel like you say it on a movie set for sure.
Yeah. So tranh thủ. Yeah, so I've been hearing that a lot. Okay, here's another one. Get nối.
Get nối, huh?
Get nối.
Get nối, like different ways of speaking.
I've been overusing this one.
Get nối.
Get nối. Yeah. Get nối, not nói.
Get
nối, not nói.
No.
So this one is connect. It literally is
really?
like perfect translation. Connect.
What's get again? Get is
Get nối. I don't know what get by itself means, but nối does mean like to connect something. Nối với nhau. Nối, you bind it, you connect it. Yeah. So for example, a sentence could be something like mấy bữa nay Andy kết nối với rất là nhiều người trong cộng đồng art. Oh my god, I just forgot what art meant. Yeah, or how to say art. How do you say art? What about artist?
You taught me that word, but I totally forgot.
Did I teach you this
in the
word? 'Cause
class?
I don't remember what it is.
The class taught me. My brain's dead from this week from work. I'm sorry.
Artist is nghệ sĩ.
Nghệ sĩ.
That's musician, I think. Thùy Anh, nghệ sĩ là chơi nhạc hay là về tất cả art? Nghệ sĩ. Cái người artist tiếng Việt là gì? Nghệ sĩ.
What is
Oh,
nghệ sĩ?
I got it. Okay. I'm always like mixing it up like nghệ như like mỹ thuật, nghệ thuật, nghệ mỹ.
Nghệ sĩ.
Like, I'm just
Cartoon họa hình or họa hình, yeah.
oh, cartoon.
Họa hình, yeah.
Hoa hình. Wait. My family always called it quạt quạ.
Quạt quạ.
Quạt quạ. Yeah,
Never
because
heard
giọng miền Nam, the HO is a W sound, right? So it's like quạt quạ. But miền Nam voice, it would be like quạt quạ.
Yeah.
So that's what we called it when we grew up. Yeah. But here it's a phim hoạt hình.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be like, oh, nghệ sĩ họa hình, yeah.
Yeah, nghệ sĩ hoạt hình. Yeah. Man, it sounds nice. It's a beautiful language.
I for me, it reminds me of filmmaking. Because like in filmmaking, it's like image A plus image B equals dot C.
Yeah.
Word A plus word B equals the meaning that we get.
Yeah.
So it's the imagery that we create to create the next meaning.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's similar to the Vietnamese formula: A plus B.
Yeah, because you combine like the word itself is its own thing, but when you combine it with that, it creates a new, right?
Yeah. For this last segment, I'm gonna challenge you. We're gonna speak in Vietnamese. So, Vietnamese part of the interview.
Oh my god.
You ready? Let's get into Vietnamese mode because it's kind of hard to transition your brain, right?
Okay.
All right. Vietnamese mode. Andy có thể nói một chút về cái chuyến đi Việt Nam của Andy hiện tại không? Chuyến này nè.
Anh thấy cảm xúc lắm. Tại mình về ăn Tết, not Tết, like nervous về ăn Tết. Trong gia đình ở 1 tháng ở Hà Nội. Tại đúng ra mình đâu có liên lạc gia đình đó rồi. Tại khoảng 5 năm rồi anh dạy một lớp online, xong có một người học sinh liên lạc anh on LinkedIn. Xong cũng nói cho anh là phải đúng họ của anh họ Hồng không phải họ Cung, but hồi xưa họ Hồng là đội Cung. Xong nói chính xác cũng đúng rồi. Xong bạn nó nói if anh có một cái cơ hội để về Việt Nam liên lạc một bạn này, bạn này còn có một cái họ giống như anh luôn. Như vậy hôm bữa cái năm 2023 đó, trước khi anh về Việt Nam á, anh cần xin bạn đó có contact để các bạn đó. Và anh càng ngại không có muốn liên lạc người bạn ở Hà Nội, tại mình không biết nó có kỳ không, tại mình chưa gặp lần nào hết, không biết người ta có believe một cái gia đình họ hàng này không. Xong trước khi 3 ngày trước khi bay á, một đêm anh đang ngủ á, nó mơ thấy ông nội của anh.
Lúc mơ thấy ông nội.
Lúc đó anh dậy anh nói cái này kỳ vậy, tại chưa có, ông nội có mất khoảng like hơn 20 năm rồi.
Wow.
Anh chưa có nằm mơ lần nào để gặp ông nội. Sao anh nghĩ chắc ông nội biết mình về quê hương.
Wow.
Vậy chắc cảm như encourage để liên lạc với gia đình này. Khuyên. Xong sau đó anh cũng liên lạc bạn đó. Xong mình 1 tuần sau mình gặp nhau. Xong that's đúng ra cái đó là họ hàng của mình. Họ hàng hồi xưa. And giới thiệu cho mấy họ hàng của họ Cung ở trên Hà Nội luôn.
Wow. Thì Andy kết nối với người này. Rồi người này dẫn Andy đi gặp họ hàng ở Hà Nội. Là tất cả họ hàng của Andy.
Hồi xưa tại mình but họ hàng xa rồi, không phải like distant relative. But trong cái gia phả đó họ hàng nói chung chí hai luôn của mình.
Wow. Rồi sau đó thì Andy về lại Mỹ. không? Rồi trong cái thời gian đó là Andy tìm cách về lại Việt Nam cho chuyến này. Bây giờ là Andy ở đây được 3 tháng rưỡi.
3 tháng rưỡi.
Dạ. Còn cái chuyến này thì Andy thấy như thế nào? Vui
lắm.
Buồn.
Buồn và không muốn về.
Buồn vì phải về lại Mỹ.
Và thấy gặp nhiều bạn mới ở đây. Còn mừng lắm để có một cái cơ hội mình kết nối trong cái culture của mình ở đây. Anh sẽ nhớ đồ ăn Việt Nam.
Nhớ nhất món gì?
Cơm tấm, bánh cuốn, cà phê bạc xỉu.
Cà phê bạc xỉu. Dạ. Andy thích uống vỉa hè hay là Andy uống trong quán?
Trong quán.
Ok, có máy lạnh.
Nếu mà tệ có nhiều mấy cái cà phê đẹp lắm á. Vậy mình một ngày đi chỗ đây nhảy qua đó, đi chạy show tới đây.
Và ở đây thì có nhiều cái rất là tiện lợi. Tại vì nếu mà muốn cà phê á, mình chỉ bước ra ngoài cửa, đi khoảng 10 bước là có cà phê. Hoặc là mình không muốn bước ra ngoài cửa, mình chỉ gọi Grab. Đem tới nhà. Rất là tiện so với Mỹ. Chris cũng buồn cho Andy là Andy phải về lại. Mong là Andy sẽ quay lại Việt Nam càng sớm càng tốt.
Chắc cuối năm về lại chơi again.
Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and I want to say a big cảm ơn to Andy for joining us today. And I'm so excited for your projects, Andy, and just for your next visit to Vietnam.
Oh no, thanks for having me. It's been such a great opportunity meeting you and all your friends here, and it's been just an amazing journey. So
you're always welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
You want to do a heart?
You do a heart, okay?
Anh Chris like đi.
No, you.
Oh, okay.
Heart.
Yêu nhau rồi, còn cái này là friend nè.
What?
Hả?
Cái này là yêu nhau.
Nếu mình yêu nhau cái đó được không?
Chris nói like, subscribe, and gì đó.
We're not to say that.
Make sure to like and subscribe to Chris Tran Travels or Survival Vietnamese
Or Third Culture Vietnam.
Third Culture Vietnam.